Good morning. With the Secretary of State for Defense's permission, the opening ceremony of the Support to West Africa Integrated Maritime Security Training the Trainers course will begin. His Excellency Admiral Henrique Ogouveia Melo, the Chief of the Naval Staff, will address the audience.
Secretary of State for Defense, Excellency, Ambassador of Ivory Coast, Ambassador of Senegal, President of Camões Institute, General Coordinator of Camões Implementation Unit, dear Admirals, Generals, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with utmost pleasure that I stand here today and greet you all, recognizing the importance of SWAIMS in Africa, European and national context to ensure maritime security in Gulf of Guinea, which is a key area in which the Portuguese Navy is fully committed. Let me tell you that I was personally involved to this project even before it started in 2019 and have been following it closely since then. That's why it is so important for me to attend the start of the first training course for trainers here in Lisbon, with the presence of military personnel from the 12 beneficiary countries of this project. The so-called new threats, commonly identified as terrorism, illegal trafficking of people, arms and drugs, irregular immigration, depletion of living and non-living resource, intentional damage to the marine environment, maritime piracy and armed robbery against ships affects the stability, security and the world's economy, and therefore deserve particular care and attention both at national and international levels. This type of threats are, most of the times, more difficult to detect and counter than classical threats due to their diffuse and hybrid nature. They have also made the separation between security and defense increasingly insidious and permeable, requiring collaborative and articulating action among numerous actors. These threats characteristics implies greater cross-cutting action by navies, coast guards and other entities, which must necessarily be organized in a collaborative, cooperative and complementary in an intelligence perspective within national and international context in order to achieve effective control over vast maritime space. The Portuguese Navy has a regular presence along the Western African coast, cooperating and supporting African states' capacity building, being part of its DNA as an institution which is proud to be a co-producer of international maritime security. In the Navy Strategic Directive, which set out my vision for my mandate as head of the Navy, I point out two strategic objectives that fall within the scope of cooperation within African states, namely, first, increase participation in missions within the remits of international organizations that Portugal is part of, including defense cooperation activities with particular focus on Gulf of Guinea. And second, implement strategic initiatives to orientate operational activity within the community of Portuguese-speaking countries, giving priority to naval activities in Gulf of Guinea. Therefore, we closely cooperate with Gulf of Guinea countries in tackling the insecurities arising from the new threats, which largely contribute to insecurity and instability in the region and have consequence at national level and European and global also. The presence of Portugal's Navy in this region is manifested through cooperative security in cooperation with various Western African countries and the active participation in several initiatives and various operations and exercises, either involving within European Union and United States initiatives or in bilateral and multilateral terms to promote maritime security, focusing and supporting those countries in tackling the upsurge of illicit maritime activities in the Gulf of Guinea. I would like to take this opportunity to highlight 4 of these activities. First, the train and capacity building project with São Tomé and Príncipe Coast Guard, which involves the permanent presence since 2018 of Portuguese patrol vessel in that country, operating with a combined Portuguese and São Tomé crew. This mission is unique and on-the-job experience with outstanding results. Second, the Mar Aberto initiative, which encompasses naval missions along the western countries' coasts, developing cooperation activities with our African partners. Third, the coordinated maritime presence within the European Union framework, participating with naval units for significant periods through the year, increasing naval cooperation of European member states, naval presence in Gulf of Guinea. And, for last, the direct involvement of the Navy in the operationalization of European Union-sponsored Project SWAIMS, which aims to strengthen maritime governance, policies, legislation, and naval systems through the supply of fast response and forensic equipment to the economic community of West African states, coastal countries. With all the aforementioned operations, projects and initiatives, Portugal remains very much committed and engaged in contributing towards a safer and prosperous Atlantic along the African coast. And for that, we will continue its cooperation and dialogue directly and through the European Union with our long-term African partners. We believe that the most effective way to restore stability in maritime areas of strategic interest by supporting coastal countries is enhancing their own maritime security and their capacity to respond to their own problems. Portuguese Navy have been involved in these issues, maritime security and capacity building projects for the last 30 years. Last but not least, I would like to congratulate the 36 trainers nominated to attend this course. I urge you to maximize the benefits of the course, as you will value valuable assets in the new step toward the security of West African maritime space. Thank you for your attention.
Commodore Nuno Cortes Lopes, Camões Implementation Unit General Coordinator, will present the SWAIMS project.
Excellencies, ambassadors, admirals, generals, distinguished guests, defense attachés, ladies and gentlemen, a special greeting also to everyone who follows us online on YouTube. I am Commodore Nuno Cortes Lopes, Camões Implementation Unit General Coordinator. I have the privilege of presenting to you a SWAIMS presentation with emphasis on our component, operational response and management of rule of law at sea. This is the presentation's agenda. I will describe what Program SWAIMS is, namely our component objectives, deliverables, funding, and Camões Implementation Unit organizational structure, after giving a brief overview of the strategic context. We'll also briefly provide an overview of the milestones and outputs, as well as on the operational training plan and on this course syllabus. I will end up with some challenges. The security development nexus has firmly established its place in the global policy making, and Africa is a very good example. In this continent, and in Gulf of Guinea in particular, maritime security is vital to ensure a sustainable socio-economic and environmental development. Looking to this 2022 maritime security overview, mainly focused on piracy attacks and armed robbery, Gulf of Guinea maritime incidents numbers and trends generally improved and are quite promising, namely in comparison with the rest of the world. Despite the downward trend in piracy, we have an upward trend in armed robbery and in illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, and also a rise in narcotraffic. It is also worth noting that a significant number of maritime incidents go unreported. Among other priorities, European Union strategy on the Gulf of Guinea highlights maritime trade and respective shipping lanes security as crucial for European Union. Additionally, European Union agreed to provide support to the implementation of Yaoundé Code of Conduct. On the other hand, ECOWAS integrated maritime strategy calls for a multilateral and integrated approach in addressing the region's challenges in maritime security. Aligned with ECOWAS and European Union strategic frameworks, we have SWAIMS as an ECOWAS program launched in 2019 and funded by the European Union. As you can see in the screen, SWAIM's strategic objective is to improve maritime security and safety in the Gulf of Guinea and implement the ECOWAS integrated maritime strategy. Originally, SWAIM's implementation period was from 2019 till 2024, but some components have been extended until 2025. European Union finances this program with 29 million euros from the 11th European Development Fund. SWAIMS have 8 different components or projects. ECOWAS Commission manages the program in coordination with the European Union delegation in Abuja, Nigeria. The beneficiary countries are the 12 ECOWAS coastal states. We have 2 Lusophone countries, Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau, 5 Francophones, Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Senegal and Togo, and 5 Anglophones, the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria and Sierra Leone. Maritime areas A to G are the ones that arise from the Yaoundé architecture. 2 main objectives emerge from the SWAIMS strategic objective. First one is dedicated to governance and law enforcement frameworks to prosecute and punish maritime crimes. There are 2 different components or projects in this first objective. Second main objective is focused in strengthening operational capacities and responses. In this second objective, there are 6 different components or projects, among which we have our component operational response and management of the rule of law at sea. Our component objective is to strengthen law enforcement, operational response and management of the rule of law at sea. In practical terms, our deliverables are 24 state-of-the-art RIB and 24 kits with forensic equipment and operational training, including maintenance support, in order to allow crews and law enforcement teams to be trained to operate at sea, namely to conduct boarding operations and inspections effectively. Regarding our component or project financing, this table summarizes the funding. European Union Commission finances the project with about 10.4 million euros, of which 6.5 million are for Camões, 1.4 million to National Defence Policy Directorate, DGPDN, and 2.5 million to the Portuguese Navy. Considering the Portuguese contribution, namely the 500,000 euros Camões will give from their own budget to the RIB acquisition tender, and the 2.3 million Portuguese Navy will give as a contribution in kind, the project has a total of around 14 million euros. Before explaining the management structure to implement this project, I must refer to 2 important framework documents. First one is the contribution agreement, signed in September 2020 by the European Union and Camões, following previous talks between Foreign Affairs and National Defence. This agreement defines the relationships between the European Union and Camões and establishes the rules for the payment of the European Union contribution. Its 6 annexes have the special conditions like the indicative time frame, outputs, RIB technical specifications and guarantees, forensic equipment list, operational training outline, courses syllabus, and the project management structure, namely Camões Implementation Unit terms of reference and the job descriptions of each position. An advisory group and a permanent local network are also mentioned in the contribution agreement. Second framework document is the inter-administrative contract, signed in February 2021 by the leaders of Camões, Portuguese Navy and DGPDN. This contract, and I used to call it a joint venture, intends to regulate the obligations of the 3 parties and, among other things, to formalize the composition of the Camões Implementation Unit. The team has the 6 positions you can see in the slide, all designated by the Chief of the Naval Staff and appointed by the Secretary of Defense. The General Coordinator can be either a Rear Admiral or a Commodore. The Project Manager and the Naval Expert in Abuja are both captains. The Training Officer and the Funds and Procurement Manager are Commanders. And the Financial Assistant is the Chief Warrant Officer. The team is formally placed at DGPDN and works on the 3rd floor of the MOD and Armed Forces Joint Staff building. I would like now to highlight 3 project milestones. The first was the RIB International Public Tender launched in August last year. It was a complex process, but regrettably the tender failed because no valid bids came in within the budget. In light of this situation, and moving to the second milestone, it was imperative and urgent to have a decision on the tender way ahead. After a period of talks and exchange of letters, on April 5th, we had a very important meeting with the ECOAS and the European Union, during which crucial decisions were made, later on confirmed by the Steering Committee. The first decision was to raise the budget for the RIB tender from 5.2 million euros to 6 million euros, with the additional 800,000 euros coming from Camões, 500,000, and from European Union, 300,000. Second decision was to reduce from 30 RIB to 24 RIB, becoming 2 RIB each country. Third decision was to extend this SWAIMS component till 31st December 2025. And finally, the fourth decision and a requirement from ECOAS was to keep RIB technical specifications and guarantees. Third milestone was last May training opportunity in Açores, Terceira Island, during the Atlantic Center Maritime Security course. It was an important and visible moment for the project, with 9 of the 12 countries represented. Forensic equipment lectures and practical training provided by the National Maritime Authority was outstanding and very much appreciated by all attendees. Moving forward to the outputs and main activities. The agreement with the European Union has 7 sequential outputs, as shown in this and in the next slide. The colors reflect the current status of the main activities of each output. Green if the activity is completed or performed, green with a yellow contour if the activity is in progress, and red if the activity has not been done yet. Regarding first output, both activities, the MOU drafting and the work plan, have already been completed. In relation with the second output, it was necessary to talk and negotiate with the ECOAS and the 12 countries in order to achieve an agreement on the MOU text and on the RIB distribution, because in the beginning of the process we had 30 RIB for 12 countries, which resulted in the need to select 6 countries that were to receive 3 RIB each. Those decisions have been made by the ECOAS with the 12 countries agreement during April last year high-level seminar in Abuja, Nigeria. The decisions were later approved by the Steering Committee. In face of this, The 12 MOU have been signed from June last year to the beginning of this month, most of them through virtual ceremonies. However, as you can see in the below picture, Portuguese Minister of Foreign Affairs and Ghana Minister of Defense signed the MOU last July 3rd on board Portuguese Navy ship Setúbal alongside the port of Tema. The RIB and the associated equipment supply is the third output. RIB technical specifications and guarantees were made by the Portuguese Navy and are part of the agreement with the European Union and the MOU with each country. Second RIB international public tender will be open until October 12. Regarding the forensic equipment tender, one kit for each RIB will be launched soon depending on the RIB tender output. The fourth output is the operational training. Our team, always with the Portuguese Navy Marines Petty Officer, did the 12th training needs assessment between June last year and last month of August. As a result, we are here today beginning the training of trainers course, and we are also in conditions to start planning the training crew teams courses in each country. Fifth output is to organize maintenance guarantees. This process can only begin after we have a RIB supplier. During the first 2 years, the RIB supplier must ensure preventive maintenance. From third year on, RIB maintenance is a national responsibility. However, we should propose solutions, like a RIB users group MOU with the supplier, but this will depend on the source of financing that will have to be found. Sixth output are the live exercises Portuguese Navy will do with the 12 countries after all RIB have been delivered. This output will be the final stage of the operational training. Finally, the seventh output is the project evaluation. In accordance with the contribution agreement guidelines, we have to do a yearly progress report with the accounts audit independently. We are just now working on the third yearly progress report and the respective accounts audit to be sent by Camões to the European Union not later November 3rd. Looking in detail to the operational training plan. Phase 1 is already completed. We made the 12 TNA visits with the purpose of evaluating beneficiary countries' existing capacities, specifically to receive the RIBs and to ensure the training not only meets country-specific needs, but also is adapted to the existing structures and available resources. We are right now in phase 2. This course started yesterday after a very demanding process to bring the 36 trainers in time to Portugal, 3 from each country. Phase 3 are the 12 training crew teams courses. These courses will be a replica of the Phase 2 course in each country. The trainers will be the ones actually attending this course, supervised and supported by Portuguese Navy and National Maritime Authority personnel. Our plan is to start this phase during first semester next year. Phase 4 are the already mentioned live exercises between the Portuguese Navy ship and the 12 countries, actually planned to 2025. Regarding the course syllabus, the course is divided in 4 parts. First part is a common core curriculum for the 36 trainers, with a duration of 27 working days. After that, the 36 trainers will split in 3 groups of 12, 1 from each country for each model. Model 1 is the RIB operation and maintenance with 25 working days. As you can see in the screen, training institutions will be from Portuguese Navy and from National Maritime Authority. Model 2 is maritime criminality, also with 25 working days. This training model will be a National Maritime Authority responsibility. And finally, Model 3, fishery inspections, with 7 working days, will be a Portuguese Navy responsibility, namely this training center where we meet today, CITAN. This model will end first on November 6th. Models 1 and 2 will end on November 30. I will end my presentation with some challenges. First one is of utmost importance for the project's future, and it is to have a RIB tender bidding winner. As you can see in the slide, second tender competition conditions were improved once we have a 44% increase in the maximum value of each RIB from the first to the second tender. However, the decision will come from the market, especially considering international events that caused the rising of inflation, which is affecting the cost of raw material and transportation. Second challenge is the RIB tender follow-up. Assuming we will not have claims or litigation, estimated calendar is the one you can see in the screen. The contract signature with the bidding winner shall occur February next year. First two RIB delivery should occur 6 months later, in August, and from then onward the plan is to deliver 2 RIB each month until August 2025. Third challenge is to sign the addenda to the contribution agreement, the 12 MOU, and the inter-administrative contract due to the RIB tender conditions and timeline changes. And finally, we have to follow up countries' preparations to receive, operate, and maintain the RIBs, and to conduct the training crew teams courses, since these preparations will have impact on the RIB distribution and training crew teams courses plans. With this, I conclude my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
His Excellency Carlos Lopes Pires, the Secretary of State for Defense, will address the audience.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Admiral Henrique Gouveia Melo, Navy Chief of Staff of the Portuguese Navy. Mrs. Ana Paula Fernandes, President of Camões Institute. Mr. Comodoro Nuno Cortes Lopes, Coordinator of Camões Implementation Unit. Mr. Generals, Ambassadors, Diplomatic Representatives, Defense Attaché, Directors and Heads of the Portuguese Ministry of Defense and Camões Institute, other military and civil entities, fellow trainers of the SWAIMS partner countries, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of you again. It is a real pleasure to be here with you today, and I really thank Admiral Gouveia Melo for his very kind invitation to be here and to address you on behalf of the Minister of Defense, who asked me to represent her because she is in Ramstein today at another international event. We are here gathering in Lisbon to celebrate the beginning of a crucial phase for the SWAIMS project. Allow me therefore to start by welcoming you all and by commending the remarkable work undertaken by the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Portuguese Armed Forces to reach today such an important turnover point. Indeed, the National Defense Policy Directorate, the Camões Institute, and the Portuguese Navy have been instrumental for the consolidation of this key initiative, which has undoubtedly reinforced the outreach of our external defense policy through concrete partnership activities. The innovative potential of this project has to be emphasized. As a matter of fact, SWAIMS is, first and foremost, a clear example of an EU initiative of delegated cooperation that stand in full alignment with the European Union Maritime Security Strategy, the strategy for the Gulf of Guinea, the Integrated Maritime Strategy for the Economic Community of Western African States, ECOWAS, and the Yaoundé Code of Conduct. In such a context, SWAIMS has therefore proved its ability to bridge different approaches and working methods, pulling together our respective strengths to target through concerted and mutually beneficial efforts a set of threats that concern each and every single actor invested in regional security along the West African shores. Secondly, this project stands out for its demand-driven design. It is clearly tailor-made to the most pressing needs of our partners, contributing to support them to fully assert their authority over their own waters and to promote reinforced law enforcement and rule of the law at the sea, two issues often cited as the most pressing vulnerabilities in the Gulf of Guinea. Thirdly, it's worth recalling that Portugal has embraced this initiative right from its inception, from the beginning, as it allows us to share our extensive experience and contribution as an active defense cooperation contributor, supporting our African partners to progressively enhance their capacities. This is particularly evident in the maritime security domain, where we have maintained a strong and consistent focus on the Atlantic, particularly in the Gulf of Guinea, through important capacity building missions that His Excellency Admiral Gouveia Melo has mentioned, such as the Open Sea Mission and the promotion of bridge building platform as the Atlantic Center. In this perspective, we consider our support for the SWAIMS project as yet another relevant contribution to strengthen maritime governance in the Gulf of Guinea. More specifically, we expect to improve operational response capacity and promote synergies at regional level, thereby enhancing the overall maritime security context in the region, as Mr. Komodo has explained to us very eloquently, if I may say so. I want to conclude by addressing those who have already participated or are currently taking part in the Camões Implementation Unit, expressing our gratitude for your availability and dedication to the achievement of this project. Today, as a result of your work, we begin the training phase of the future instructors coming from the partner countries of this project. Congratulations, therefore, for the 36 trainers who have joined us, selected for these courses from the 12 participating countries. We welcome you with great enthusiasm. Every step you take in your learning journey in Portugal is a step towards the success of your mission, our mission, and the opportunity to teach your fellow trainers and trainees in the future. I have to add that I arrived from Mozambique last Sunday. It was on the eastern shore of Africa. And now we are addressing you here to the west coastal states, but facing basically the same threat, be it in Mozambique or in the Gulf of Guinea. And that Mr. Admiral has mentioned here, all kinds of criminality, and therefore the efforts that the European Union is also undertaking in Mozambique in supporting the armed forces of Mozambique, namely in the Navy dimension, with also equipment that they will be receiving, and namely also RIPs of the same kind. I think that what you are doing here in SWAIMS is also a very useful and valuable experience that will be, I'm sure, of great relevance for our brothers in Mozambique. And that's the idea and the spirit, that West-East, we could share experiences, we can learn together, because the threat is the same, be it on the West or the East. Indivisible security in Africa today is undeniable, and it's not only the terrorism scourge, but also all kind of traffics, all kind of organized crime, narcotics. So I'm really very happy and enthusiastic about this project, and I'm sure that what you will be here dealing together and learning together will be very useful for what we are also doing in other places in Africa, and namely in Mozambique. So I'm really commending you for being pioneers in this vein, and I wish you all the best for this course. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much.
With the Secretary of State for Defense's permission, the opening ceremony of the SWAIMS Training the Trainers course is concluded. Thank you.